Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Pyromancer here, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Get ready for some speculatory speaking. Today we're going to be talking about none other than Queen Azshara, Empress of Nazjatar, leader of the Naga, and formerly Queen and ruler of the kal'dorei Empire before the Great Sundering. If you're not familiar with Queen Azshara, as I've just given you a pretty quick rundown of who she was actually the leader of the kal'dorei Empire way back when Xavius first got in touch with Sargeras. Sargeras then began communing directly with Queen Azshara. And the whole plot with Queen Azshara, who you see in the Well of Eternity dungeon from Cataclysm, in the Caverns of Time, she had actually agreed to help Sargeras create and craft this portal through the Well of Eternity, with which he was going to come into our reality and do Sargeras things, whatever it is that Sargeras does, right? Now, of course, there were some heroes that thwarted this plan, and we actually went back, of course, like I said, through the dungeon and helped to secure this type of thing. This was also necessary for Nazjatar to retrieve the Dragon Soul, but that's a different point. So what the hell happened to Queen Azshara? Whoa, where did she go? Well, Queen Azshara, if you're not sure, she was born just like Illidan with golden eyes. She was very important. For what reason, we don't exactly know yet. However, when Sargeras had attempted to come through the portal and it was then closed upon him, doing God knows what to Sargeras, killing him, putting him into the void, sending him to the Shadowlands, who the fuck knows where Sargeras actually went in that moment. When the Well of Eternity started to blow up, she had no choice but to, well, reach out for more help. And because Sargeras had no way of obtaining her, reaching out to her, she decided to go along with the old gods. Now, the old gods are interesting in particular with Queen Azshara because there's one which we believe to be particularly invested in Queen Azshara, and that is Nazjatar. Now, I want to head this off by saying that you can see Queen Azshara's old form. She's a highborn, very beautiful elf, quite frankly. She was considered the light of lights by her people. You can see her in that dungeon. However, we see, going forward into Battle for Azeroth, we've seen data mined models for her. And while she is twisted in the manner that she has octopus legs and that, I guess they're not legs anymore, tentacles, if you will, that good hentai stuff, you can still see that Queen Azshara really, and facially, she's still quite beautiful. She still retains a very nice kind of regal looking garb, to be honest with you. Still looks pretty nice. But here's the thing, is that when she decided to go with the old gods, presumably primarily Nazjatar, she was dragged down to the bottom of the ocean, the depths of the ocean, with her elven followers, and they were then twisted into the amalgamous creatures that we know as Naga. Now, I want to go off on a bit of a tangent here and let you know that Naga are actually modeled off of an H.P. Lovecraftian creature called the Deep Ones. Now, if you're familiar with H.P. Lovecraft, I have the Gods of Lovecraft here, in which it actually talks about the Deep Ones. And you can compare and contrast the attributes of these creatures to the Naga, and they line up very well. Now, one of the particular things that the Naga do, or the Deep Ones do, is that they get in touch with small groups of secluded human sailors and traders. And they actually mate with them. Yeah, it's really weird. And this is very interesting because we see something sort of similar already happening in kul'tiras, where the humans are there, they have the storm priests or whatever, and they're basically worshipping the ocean and seemingly the old gods in order to have fruitful catches, to be able to traverse the water safely, right? So we kind of have this already developing. If you're familiar with the story from H.P. Lovecraft, The Shadow over Innsmouth, you should take a look at kul'tiras because it's very similar. But back to Queen Azshara. When she was dragged down there and they all became the Naga, this, to me, was a very interesting thing because we have whispers from the old gods that I think refer to this, like at the bottom of the ocean, even light must die. And Queen Azshara being known as the Light of Lights, it must be very dark and cold at the bottom of the ocean. We also have whispers like the fish know the secrets, they know the cold, they know the dark. I believe that to be talking about the Naga as well. But what did the Naga do down there? Well, if you read into the old RPG lore, which you probably aren't going to want to take as canon at this point, but there is some writings as well in other books that describes Nazjatar. And it describes that down at the bottom of the ocean, there are heat vents, which are seemingly going to be utilized down there for the production, whatever, maybe. I don't know exactly what they're doing down there. But they built an entire city. And interestingly enough, we've never really seen it. Not fully. But as I mentioned, the Cthulhu mythos in Lovecraft, it's important to also go into the realm of Riley. If you're not familiar, and I hope that I'm pronouncing that right, it is a sunken city from H.P. Lovecraft. And it is brought to the surface when Cthulhu surfaces from the ocean. He is the herald of all of the other old ones, if you will. He brings his city with him. So this is really where I'm going with this. Queen Azshara is quite important, and I think that we will learn a lot from her. But I have to ask you, could it be that similarly to the Lovecraftian mythos of Cthulhu rising from the depths of the ocean and bringing his city with him, could it be possible that Queen Azshara would consider doing the same thing? Is it possible that Queen Azshara not only comes up from the bottom of the ocean to be fought, but also brings her empire with her? Because why not? Bring the darkness with you if you can. You're going to need your source of power, right? But we don't know what they've really been doing down there this whole time. We don't know what their long-term plan is. We don't really know that much about Queen Azshara's plot. We just know that there have been times in the past where she had very, very high interest in the Tidestone. Obviously, she sends Mistress Sassine to the Tomb of Sargeras in order to retrieve that, alongside Harjatan. There's also been times where she tried to get a hold of the Elemental Lord of Water, so that she could apparently get a hold of his power to control the oceans for whatever reason that they're looking to do this. It's described in Chronicle that N'Zoth tried to orchestrate this in order to cut off the trade routes and stuff like that, not actually to wreak havoc with the ocean itself, but to cause chaos among the traders in different nations of the World of Warcraft by literally fucking up their ability to trade and get in contact with each other. So the old gods go very, very in depth. They're very methodical, and so is Queen Azshara. Now, Queen Azshara is also an incredibly powerful sorceress. We're talking real powerful. This elf was so powerful that Manaroth was actually afraid of her. She was so powerful that the only beings in the Legion that could actually rival her power were Archimonde and Kil'jaeden themselves, and some believed that she was even more powerful than them, and that she could have potentially rivaled the power of Sargeras himself. Now, I'm not one to believe that in any capacity, obviously, given the fact that we've seen Sargeras. He is massive beyond mortal comprehension. He's incredibly powerful, as seemingly covered in fire. He could literally flick us and we would go flying. This is why I don't believe that we'll ever fight Sargeras. I don't think it's realistic. But then again, it's a game. They can do anything they want. But back to Queen Azshara. What is the plot going to be? Because there's apparently creatures from the sea attacking up in kul'tiras. It's going to be a problem for us in BFA. We have this burning of Teldrassil that's taking place of a tree in the water. Some people have speculated Queen Azshara could have been involved with that. We have Queen Azshara being involved with Prophet Zul, as we've seen with some of the letters coming from the BFA Alpha and Beta. Some type of conversation happening between them, in which you can definitely see the expression of interest in one another. Whatever exactly the plan there is, we don't know. But I'm of the opinion that Prophet Zul has foreseen, of course, the hour of twilight and knows when this is coming. It is also, at this point, looking like we're going to fight Prophet Zul in Uldir, the first raid of Battle for Azeroth, and then Queen Azshara is supposed to be the second raid. Now, some people have said, oh, she's going to be second tier, but the way that it's described at BlizzCon that we had on main stage, or it might have been the What's Next panel, actually, describes that we'll be facing off against Queen Azshara in the second raid of the expansion, which seems so early. Like, holy hell, man, that's kicking it off quick. I mean, we got the Emerald Nightmare of the expansion, then you're kind of going straight into like the Nighthold of the expansion, right? It's kicking off quick, and to have Queen Azshara coming up that soon that's troublesome, and we definitely should be worried. Now, here's the thing, is that Queen Azshara, I think if Sargeras were to ever return, she would, in turn, go from a being like N'Zoth, a being of power, relative power, right, to Sargeras again, because he is definitely powerful beyond the realms of the old gods. Now, while the old gods might be very methodical and manipulative and all of those things, when it comes to sheer power, there's no old god, I don't think, that's going to give Queen Azshara the same level of power that someone like Sargeras could. Like titanic power, how do you compete with that? And so if Sargeras were to come back, I think it's possible that our Light of Lights may have actually joined him. But the interesting thing about Queen Azshara when you look at her is she doesn't really have those bright golden eyes anymore. They're not there. So again, I think this goes back to at the bottom of the ocean, even light must die. I think that it's very possible that how Illidan had his light vision kind of burned out by Sargeras, Queen Azshara might have literally gone down there and been killed and reborn without that vision, without that biased vision. Again, I think this illustrates an interesting correlation between Sargeras' plans and the Old Gods' plans. If you watch my stream, you all are well aware of my opinions on that. I'll save that for another video, though. Going back to Queen Azshara. Second raid. Are we going to kill her? A lot of people are asking, are we going to kill her? Because they never said we would kill her. They said that we would face off against her. Now, I think that this kind of illustrates the idea that we're trying to kill her. But if she is as powerful as we're led to believe, that might not be such an easy thing to just walk in and do. Especially if she's bringing up an entire empire of Naga, potentially faceless ones. Fucking N'Zoth could be with her. Now, on the note of N'Zoth being with her, a lot of people have been looking at Queen Azshara face, and she has these 3 old god eyes in the middle of her forehead now. And a lot of people have compared and contrasted this with N'Zoth. It is very possible that N'Zoth could actually be holistically or in part merged with Queen Azshara. I think this is interesting because I'm pretty sure that N'Zoth is in the Rift of Aln. In fact, in Chronicle Volume 3, it describes that he is shrouded under an ocean of fevered dreams, which I thought was a very weird description, untouched by the blades of mortals, surrounded by nameless horrors. And that I thought was weird. So maybe it's a part of N'Zoth attached to Queen Azshara. Maybe N'Zoth attaches to Queen Azshara's head so that when she dreams, he is then in part transported to the dream as well, alongside her, so that he can infiltrate the dream. Who knows? N'Zoth could have a hive mind complex at this point where he could be split up into multiple parts where he's affecting Queen Azshara. He's affecting maybe Rathian. Maybe he's affecting the Emerald Nightmare or the Emerald Dream through some other capacity. But it's very interesting the way that Chronicle Volume 3 talks about N'Zoth. I want to also note, just while we're on the topic of old gods, that in this book, it is pretty clear that they never reference any of the old gods with a he-she gender. It's not a thing. They always talk about them as entities, as N'Zoth was trying to bolster its strength. It never once calls N'Zoth he. It never once calls Yogg-Saron he. Not once does it call Cthulhu he. Not once does it call Y'Shaarj he. So when you have whispers coming from creatures like Il'gynoth, flesh is his gift, he is your true creator, I am not one to believe in any capacity that is talking about Yogg-Saron or any of the other old gods, because quite simply, Blizzard is not identifying them with he and she, and I believe that the only one of the only exceptions to this is the dungeon journal for Yogg-Saron, which was not added in Wrath. It was added later on anyway, and in which point I believe it references Yogg-Saron as a he, but I'm pretty sure that's like the only time that's ever done. So I'm a little bit iffy on that. Back to Queen Azshara. What's going to happen if she gets away? Well, if she does get away, when she comes back, we're definitely going to be in trouble, because Queen Azshara has been biding her time for thousands of years. Over 10,000 years she's been down there fucking shit up, and since we saw her in the Well of Eternity dungeon, we have not seen her since. We fought against Lady Vash in the Coilfang Reservoir. I believe Serpentrine, whatever the fuck it's called, I can't even remember what it's called in BC. Again, we fought Mistress Sassine in the Tomb of Sargeras. It's about time we faced off against the Queen Fish herself. I don't know what's going on with you guys, but I think that this whole situation is a little bit fishy, and I couldn't do it. I was going to throw the pun in there. I just couldn't do it. But I would love to know your guys' thoughts on this. What do you think about the possibility of Queen Azshara in glorious fashion raising Nazjatar up from the depths of the ocean? Because I hate to say it, you guys, but after Vashj'ir, I don't want a bunch of water zones. I have thalassophobia, so I'm not trying to go in and fuck around in the water anyway. I'm not about that deep water shit, so it's already going to be enough of a nightmare for me. Ironically, no pun intended, dealing with the old gods and everything. a lot of people are probably going to ask, when do you think we will fight N'Zoth? Because Queen Azshara is probably going to be the final boss of that raid. She should be anyway. So when do I think we'll fight N'Zoth? Well, I really am sticking to the idea that N'Zoth is in the Rift of Aln, and that there could even be another old god down under the ocean. While we're on that note, people have been asking me, who do you think that the 5th old god depicted in Chronicle Volume 3 could be? If you guys haven't seen that, I have a link in the description. You should go check it out. People have been saying that there was this data mined card from Hearthstone. I believe it's Kal'dorei, the Devourer, and there are some interesting cards for this particular individual. The artwork for Kal'dorei is interesting because it actually matches some of the other things we've seen in the game to represent the old gods, i.e., for example, this mural on the wall in the Heart of Fear, where you fight the Empress at the end. It looks very, very similar to that art, but if I'm recalling correctly, the art on that card is fan art. That's not official art. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Herald of Kal'dorei is also a fan art picture of Sargeras. And we just saw Sargeras. So for Sargeras to be the Herald of Kal'dorei, does that mean Kal'dorei is on his way? Is Kal'dorei this 5th old god? Because it's certainly not G'huun at this point. We can push that aside. People I think are putting way too much importance into G'huun. But I could be wrong. I could be putting not enough importance into G'huun. And yes, I'm fully aware that Hearthstone cards are not supposedly canon. So for those of you that put that in the comments, I'm aware. I've just had a lot of people asking me about it, so I figured I'd talk about it. But people have been wondering, could it be that is because of the count of eyes, I believe there's 3 eyes, could that be the old god that's involved with Queen Azshara, and it's not really as directly N'Zoth as we think? I don't know, you guys. I don't know. I think it is important, again, to always touch on the possibility that in killing Argus, the Titan of Death, even death may die, I wonder where his soul, if it went anywhere, where it could have been transported. There are also whispers from Daromir Cemetery from Beta that talk about, our master has awakened and he has noticed you, again, referring to them as he. And I just think that if this is not the character attributing a gender to N'Zoth directly, that this he could be talking about the true creator. Flesh is his gift. He is your true creator. We'll come back to this later. We got to talk about mortal flesh and immortal flesh at some point, because it's a very important distinction between the two. I've noticed this on Argus and Antaurus, but I'm rambling at this point. I digress. Back to you guys. What do you think about the whole Queen Azshara plot, the whole thing with N'Zoth? What do you think about the potential of her raising up that city? What would your thoughts be if we ended up having to go down into the darkness to find her? Perhaps she only brings up a portion of the city with her. Who knows? I'd love to know your thoughts. And if you'd leave a comment section down in the comment, or leave a comment in the comment, blah, 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 you guys know what to do. Leave a comment if you want. Like the video if you like the video. If you're not subscribed already, make sure to do that. If you guys don't know, I do have a Twitter, Twitch, and a Patreon page that you can find links to all down in the description below, as per the usual fashion. I also have a Discord which you guys can come and join, and there's a link to that in the description as well. That's pretty much it, you guys. I appreciate you very much. You stay awesome. Let me know what you think of the video quality, of course, and until next time, I will see you guys. Well, you know what I'll see you guys say it every freaking time. I'll see you later. Peace!